successful receiver in New England history and the greatest quarterback of all time. Julian Edelman and Tom Brady, shake the building.
Did this in New York, we like a bunch of moves, so.
Actually, last night I went to see the Life Achievement Award, and a good friend of mine was there. He was a top financial trader, one of the top 10 in the world. And I was sitting beside him, and he saw that we're speaking here tomorrow, and he said, I used to hate him. I hated him more than anything. He goes, and then when they were losing so bad at the end, I felt bad. I thought, let him get one more touchdown. He said that comeback was the greatest thing he's seen in the history of his life. And guys, I know you guys just came from practice with your helicopter over here, so let's give a hand for making the time for us. But, you know, both of you have something in common. Yes, they are goats. Greatest of all time. Both of you become some of the greatest of all time, and you both started out as underdogs. I mean, I know you were in junior college there at San Mateo, and you know, you weren't recruited super heavily, as I understand. You were picked, you know, in the 7th draft. You spent 2 years in college just, you know, sitting on the bench, right?
Yeah.
And then turning around, figuring out what to do in your psychology in your head, coming back, you were picked 199th, 6th round. Yeah. And you're both the best in the world, and might argue right some of the best in history. Question. How the hell do you go from the underdog to the best on earth? What would attract you from those days when you're sitting on the bench to really being who you are today? That's a big question. But what was some of the key elements? And I want to ask you the same if I may. Well, I want to start with you.
Sure. Well, that's a long story.
Yeah, well, I'll take it.
But I think that, you know, in so many ways, so many of the experiences I had in my life prepared me for being an underdog. You know, I grew up in a family, I had 3 sisters, all of whom were better athletes than me. All the attention was given to them in sports growing up, actually. And I grew up in San Francisco Bay Area. I was a big fan of the 49ers, and ended up, you know, loving them and loving, you know, 2 of my great idols at the time were 2 great quarterbacks. So it was just a great time growing up in the Bay Area and watching these spectacular team with these great leaders. But I didn't even start playing football till my freshman year in high school. I didn't even know how to put the pads in my pants when I showed up to practice on the first day. And all these other kids had played Pop Warner and they kind of knew what to do. And it was intimidating, but I loved the sport and I wanted to learn and I wanted to get better. And I fell in love with the sport, enough so that I got picked to go to Michigan. I chose this great school in the Midwest, which was a long ways from home. But that competition in high school and kind of being an underdog in high school taught me how to be the underdog professionally or in college. When I showed up to the college campus my first year, I was the 7th quarterback on the depth chart. So I was looking up at a lot of people. And quarterback's different than receiver, only one guy plays. And I really fought hard over the course of that time to develop my skills and watch actually other guys do it the right way and sometimes the wrong way. But I used it as an opportunity, even being behind people, to understand what competition was all about and the things that I needed to do to gain the trust and respect of the people that I worked with, to ultimately gain the respect, and they elected me captain in my last year at the school, which was really cool And we actually had a pretty good year, and I thought, man, I might be picked at a decent point in the NFL draft. And I had to wait a long time for my name to be picked again, which was a great thing for me because there weren't that many expectations for me being picked, 199th pick. There was already a great quarterback that we had on our team, so the entire first year, I just got to sit back and I got to watch. I got to watch someone else do it. And I watched and I learned and I worked, and the moments I didn't have to play, I used those as a way to use those practices as my games, and use the weight room and use the conditioning to gain the trust in my teammates again. So the experience that I had in high school, the experience that I had in college prepared me for when my opportunity came. And most people's opportunity in sports may come when they're 18. Well, mine didn't come when I was 18. I had to really work hard over the course of those years to prepare myself that when I was 23, 24, I got my opportunity. And I like to say that I was a late bloomer. And now I'm still, on the vine, and still trying to find ways to grow. And I think part of, being here, and I know that you guys are all here, searching for different things in your life that you can learn, that can inspire you, help, become the best version of yourself. And I'm very much that same way. I'm very open to trying new things. And sometimes at our job, you have to get better in order to get worse. So much of what I've done and tried to transform myself into an athlete was, doing things that were really uncomfortable for me. I was going up against some of the best athletes, some of the guys that, I was always the slowest guy on the team. We ran, I was last, and I still am today, but I run a lot faster than they did than I did when I was 18 years old. So I think so much is just continuing to understand what your strengths and weaknesses and build on those things. And most importantly for me, when you're a member of a team, to gain the trust and the love and the respect of your teammates. And this is one of the guys that I love the most, and I've been lucky to play with for as long as I have. We still get a chance to do it, this year too, so we're excited about that.
That's right. Julian was a quarterback, and you probably know, and you sat on the bench for 3 or 4 years, and then you train yourself to become a wide receiver, and now, you have third-grade receptions in the history of the NFL, and Rice is the only person that you use the next one for you to knock off. How the hell did you do that and not lose your truth, not lose your belief, not lose your certainty when you're sitting around so much? I'm hearing you turned around and you said, I'm going to use this time, not be used by it. I'm not going to sit here and be frustrated, I want to learn. What did you do that took you from that place of really being the underdog to being the dominant player in the league here?
Well, it all started with me. I had a mentor, and I was fortunate enough to have a father that was in my life. And I would wake up every morning, my father would be gone, working from 5 to 5, come home, and we would practice. And we would practice 7 days a week. We would take the bat and balls on vacation. We'd have my sister shagging the balls, my brother on first base while I'm taking in the field. So he instilled in me at a very young age, if you want to be good at something, you got to go out and earn it. You got to practice, because practice execution becomes game reality. And
you talked about that earlier.
For a guy like me, because I've done that for so long, I have that in the back of my mind. I have like my father, where if I don't practice, I'm not confident. And if I don't work on my craft, I'm not confident. So I overdo it sometimes, but I have to do that for my psyche to be on the right page. And, I was a quarterback in college for 3 years. I went to JUCO. I was a late bloomer. I was like 4'11" my freshman year of high school.
Wow.
But I played football since I was 8, so I knew how to put pads in my pants.
It is.
And being a Pop Warner guy, I was able to compete because I knew the game of football better than the kids that were bigger, but and more athletic. But I was able to have vision. I could, use my experience just from playing the game to my advantage. And so, going back to that, I ended up playing quarterback in high school. Went to junior college. I didn't get recruited out of high school, so that naturally made my chip on my shoulder, a lot bigger. I remember, I led my team to 13-0, and they always bring in the studs in the coaches' office, and they have the Division I schools there, and the Division IIs, and the 1AAs, and the JUCOs. And every time they went there, I never got papers. I would be in the room, but they never gave me a paper. And I would get so mad, like, foolish pride mad. I would sit there, I'm like, what's the deal here? So that naturally also made my chip a little bigger.
Did you convert that into energy to perform or to grow? Or?
So all I did was just to work hard. So I would use that as fuel when I would go and train. And when I would go and find out what I had to do to improve myself, work hard at what I had to do, and just consistently do it. Because that's when I saw results. It was when I consistently worked hard at something. So then I ended up having good individual stats. The team was terrible. That I was at my university, but I was fortunate enough to get drafted as an athlete because I was a dual threat guy. And when Bill called me on draft day, he calls and says, I don't know what you're gonna play, but you can play football, so I'll see you tomorrow at rookie camp. And I'm like, all right, cool, coach, And then for my first 4 years, I look at my receiver room, we got Randy Moss, we got Wes Welker, we traded for Joey Galloway, or for Greg Lewis, we signed Joey Galloway, we had a special teams guru by the name of Sam Akins, who was a stud. So you sit there and you're like, you get drafted, all your friends think you made it, this, that. I was in the last round, and you sit back and you're like a cornered animal. You gotta work your way to even prove yourself that you can play on the team. So what I had to do was I had to make myself as versatile as I possibly could because I wasn't great at one thing. I was good at a lot of little things because I wasn't experienced at the position. And I got to sit back like Tom did and sit and watch masters of the craft. Wes Welker, Randy Moss. And I'd take all these little things that they would do, even though they were different body types and everything, you can add it to your tool belt. So I would sit, and even if I wasn't in for practice, because you get limited reps with the vets out there, I would sit and I would watch Wes, and I'd watch Randy, and I would play it over and over in my head. And I would sit and watch film of Dion Branch, and I'd watch film of Dante Stallworth, and all these guys that were really well in our system that had a repertoire with Tom. And so after my first year, got banged up a little bit. I had some time. I was still very raw. I heard that Tom and the receivers would go out to Los Angeles and train. So I just so happened to be represented by the same agent as Tom over at Edelman Sports. Give him a little shout out. But so I was like, Don, Steve, give me a place in LA. He's like, have you ever been to LA? No, give me a place in LA. I want to go to LA, and if he ever needs someone to throw to, tell him to call me. Because at the time, I wasn't talking to the guy. I was like a young dude. Like, you sit there and you just kind of watch. Like, there's Tom Brady, there's Randy Moss. And I wonder what they're doing. I go to Axis, like stuff like that. And so that year, he called me once. And I was at a barbecue. I left everything. I went and I ran over and I threw routes with him like one time that year. And so we ended up I didn't have a great season, like statistically. You get washed around because you have to do things. And I go out, the second year we threw a couple more times, the third year we threw more, and then by year 4 we're throwing 3 days a week, having lunch at his house. So I'm like, sweet, But I did that, it was like, if I want to play, there's one quarterback, there's 4 receivers, what do I got to do? I got to have this guy, learn my body mechanics. I got to know what he likes, because I was a quarterback. I knew I had my favorite receivers because I knew that on an in cut, he would run flat to downhill and wouldn't get undercutted, so I could trust that guy. I wanted to see what he needed to be, what he wanted to get the trust. And, you know, then all this, obviously, signed with the Denver Broncos. I came back and I got more of an opportunity to play offense, and, you know, just year by year, you continually improve, and that's kind of how, you know, my underdog story came, and I've always learned through just working hard, and really, you gotta be. You know, it's crazy though. You know, you almost have to be, if you really want something so bad, and you like, as bad as you want to breathe, you almost can't be balanced. You cannot be balanced. So like, there's so many things you have to sacrifice, like friendships, like off seasons, like schedule, like going out, having fun. Like for a long time in my career, you know, I was obsessed with trying to just get on the field and do what I could possibly do. And, you know, that's kind of how my mentality has always been.
I heard 4 things that are common. I love the translating those because most people are business owners. How many own your own business in this room? So you translate as well. Pretty extraordinary. So these people are taking risks, they're on the ground, making it happen. And many of them are underdogs when they start their businesses, nothing. Pat Riley told me something one time years ago. I asked him, I said, you know, he told me how he's recruiting LeBron. And, you know, LeBron was back and forth, and he opened his hand like this. He said, why should I do it? He closed his hand, and what he put in were 6 world championship rings. He opened it up, and he said, you have none of those, so do whatever you want. So I said, what created those 6 rings? And he told me, he said, my father. He said, I was never that great an athlete in the NBA. But I got there, I maximized my talent, because one day I was not maximizing my talent as a kid. And I came home and I was just sitting around, and my father came home, his father was intense, and he grabbed him by the throat, leaned him against the garage door and said, if this is how you're thinking you're gonna play, you're never gonna amount to anything. He said, right now while you're sitting, your competition is practicing, and one day they will meet you and defeat you. And then he dropped him on the ground. And he said it produced in him a hunger that it didn't matter whether he had the skill or not. He was going to outwork, outdrive, and to this day, Pat, he's no longer a coach, obviously, but he always had teams that were the hardest working, the toughest, the meanest on earth, and he gave them practice a little nobody practiced, so the game felt like relaxing by contrast. Second thing I heard from you is besides that hunger is modeling. Both of you found the best instead of being pissed on the sidelines, studied your ass off to find those little pieces that would give you those 2 millimeters that looks like nothing, but you take it out a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, it's a different destiny. You both did that. And then the third part is you got in proximity with the best, right? You know, in proximity is power. You put yourself in the position to constantly be in proximity, and then just like a business, this was his customer. He realized this was his client. And he was going to find every way to meet his needs so he would be indispensable. And he's done all the above. Does that fair representation of what you want?
Absolutely.
How important is hunger, and how do you not lose? I know for me, it's not lose it, but so many people, they win one championship, you know, and then they lose their edge. You see it in so many sports teams over the years. I get called in for a lot of those teams.
Yeah.
You know, you and I have talked about this privately before, but tell me, how do you keep that edge? How come the hunger doesn't give up when you got more Super Bowl rings than any quarterback in the history of the world?
Well, I think for me, it's perspective. So you know, everything I just talked about, I remember that. That wasn't a part of everyone else's story, that was my story. So everyone else thought, oh, you just went to Michigan, you got picked by the Patriots, and next thing you know, you won. But they don't know what the journey was. So they don't know what is inside of you. And what's inside of me is I'm very internally motivated. It doesn't take much externally to motivate me. I'm not motivated by a lot of things that you guys might think might motivate you. And that, you know, everyone finds different forms of motivation. I'm very happy with the ways that I found it. I left practice today. Is my 18th year, going to my 18th year, my 18th off season. And we wrapped up our mini camp. And so we're on the field for 2.5 hours, and I walked off the field and I thought, I am the worst quarterback in the NFL. How could I possibly have made those throws? I mean, that was so dumb to do that. And I think there's, you know, when I walk off the field and I think, man, if it's not perfect for me, I lose sleep. I do an interception today. I feel like I let the whole team down. I let all my teammates down. I let all the people who are investing in us and our team and our fans and our coaches, everyone who's sacrificing the hours on the weekend to watch, or the coaches that are sacrificing time with their family, or the players that are sacrificing all the things that are pretty robust at this point in their life. They're sacrificing, and I let them down. And I can't do that. And I think that's what motivates me. I want to be the best I can be for him every day. I want to be the best I can be for my family every day. So that's what my motivation is. And I don't think that will ever change.
And when that is your standard, I found this with every great achiever I know, it isn't about them. Certainly you benefit in your own experience of being the best. But every great leader I've ever met in my life is driven to serve something greater than themselves. It's like life supports what supports more life. If you're trying to support yourself, you'll get a certain insight. If you're trying to support your family, you get a different level of insight because it supports more lives.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to support a community or a country or a team, all of a sudden it expands. And every person I know has done that, and every business I've ever met, when they're in it just to make money, fails.
Yeah.
You have to make money, you can't get the business. But in the beginning, it's like having a child. There's not a lot of reward other than a smile. There's a lot of shit. But eventually, it's this incredible gift of what you have that has to be something that you're looking to serve more than yourself. Tell me, it's 28 to 3. There's 8.5 minutes left in the third quarter. Everybody else in the field has given up. Many people turned off the television. Tell me what you're thinking, and what made it possible then to come back. And now I'm going to come to you, and it's 20 to 28, and there's a ball thrown, and it's got 3 people surrounding you, and it hits somebody's leg, and somehow you catch that ball. I want to know this.
That was it. We got down. We were down 21-3 at halftime, and it looked, bleak to say the least. And I thought, as I saw right before I came out, I thought, man, this is exactly where we did not want to be. Like against this team, because they had a lot of those games. They'd blown a lot of these teams out. At the end of the game, it was 48-3 or 48-10, and they had just run away with it. And we all looked, we were in the locker room, and there was no panic. There were guys, and we said, look, we've done a lot of things that have worked. We just haven't scored points, and we've made a lot of mistakes. We can't do it anymore. We're at the point where we have no more margin of error. And we went out there in the third quarter, and we gave up another touchdown. And so the margin of error was razor thin. And going back and watching the game, 3 days after the game, there were so many plays that you were like, oh my God, if we didn't make that play, we don't win. And I think it was just ultimately having the belief in what our process was. We had a belief in what our plan was, but just for the first 2.5 quarters of the game, we didn't execute it. We had a good plan, we had a great plan. We just didn't do a good job of doing what we said we were going to do. And it took a lot of really great plays, a lot of incredible moments that ended up turning the tide, and is going to be the reason why we get our Super Bowl rings tomorrow night. So.
Oh, that's awesome. How do you, when people come to the Patriots, they learn the Patriot philosophy and core belief, which is we always win, right? And just that, we always improve. Tell me what kept your sense of certainty, because we just talked about this earlier, right?
Yeah.
The person loses certainty, doesn't matter what their skill is, they don't execute. How did you keep your certainty up at those times? And I'll hear from you about that moment as well, because that moment was obviously one of the most critical moments in the game.
Yeah. It's the catch.
Yes. And tell me first, what kept you certain that you could win? Were you still certain you could win? What kept you going?
We went into.
I think we're going to have problems with that.
We got a mic check. We went in. And Mike. So we go into halftime, and I just kept on saying it was going to be a hell of a story. The whole time. And sometimes when you're cut down, I can get negative on myself because that's as a former competitor, sometimes you're nitty-picky about perfection, this, that. But when you're really cut down all the way down to where we were, that's when you got to start bringing in positive. And like Tom said, we had a plan, but we just didn't do it. We knew what we had to do. And I kept on thinking to myself, I was like doing math and stuff, sitting in my locker, like, well, if we go here, we have this, that. They scored 21 points in the first half. Why can't we score 21 points right now and hold them to nothing, So I was just thinking like that, and then I kept on thinking about my game plan. And, anytime I get nervous or you feel some nerves, I always just lean back on the fundamentals of what got me there. And what gets me there is working hard. So I go over what makes me feel well is when I feel prepared. And when I'm prepared, I'm going over all my plays. I'm going all over their tendencies, what they did, all our play sheets and all that kind of stuff. So I was just going through my routine and I was just yelling out in the locker room, guys, it's going to be a hell of a story. It's going to be a hell of a story.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
You can't even become the future. You always there, right? You have to have that. Let's see the result, no results there.
Yeah, going in halftime saying that, and then the first, third down, I dropped, and we freaking had to punt it, and then they go down and score. And I'm sitting there like, hey, it's gonna be even better stuff.
It was 31 unanswered points.
Sometimes you think when you're down that much, and I didn't really think it in this game, but I've always thought, in sports, when you're losing, what's the worst that could happen? You're already losing. Like, it can't get any worse than that. That's why you play to win and you're losing. So if you do win, think about what they're going to say about you the next day. I think that's what it's all about. I was not thinking that in the Super Bowl.
Tell us about the moment of that catch. What can you tell us about that moment?
Yeah. There's a bunch of great plays. Hoax, Danny, they were setting us up, and whenever you go into like a 2-minute drive, you need a chunk play, which is a 20-yard gain, which statistically, if you get a chunk play, you're gonna have a better chance of winning, which is like crazy, because they break everything on the stats up. But so on that play, I saw the coverage, and Tom hit me a couple times in practicing that. So I knew he was going to come to me. Just because it was, cover 5, we needed something. I knew that he wasn't going to go to the bow. He had inside left over there. I knew the safety was kind of high. He was kind of eyeing me down. So I went in and I tried to sell the route. I didn't sell the route very well. And Alfred goes back and he tips it. And I just so happened to be able to get my feet in the ground and like catapult myself. And I was going in because there was 2 other dudes close. And I was like, oh man, let's just not get this thing picked. So then it hits a foot.
I was saying the same thing too. You go, yes, oh, no.
I'm sitting here, and my eyes are like, it goes back to like you're a cornered animal. Like you have no other choice but to do everything you possibly can for the fate of that's what Bill says. Ball security is like when you're carrying the ball, you're carrying the fate of every single person and their families in this organization. Wow. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh snap, this thing's coming. I dive, it hits a leg, an arm, and I just tried to keep my eye on the ball, and I was able to do that, and I double clutched it. I go, let's get up Peter. I knew I caught it, but I wanted him to challenge it, potentially get a timeout out. So I was like,
oh, very cool. That's cool. What were you thinking at this moment?
Wow. Well, when I let it go, and then I saw the DB start to turn and get his eyes on the ball, it's like your biggest fear is a quarterback. And he did it, and then I saw Julian actually had a pretty good glimpse of it, and the rest ran in pretty quick, and they were like, he got it. And then I just took one look at those screens up in the stadium, and I said, he caught that thing. I don't know how he did it, but it was the biggest play, in the game. There was a lot of big plays, but we couldn't have won without that play. So.
You and I talked earlier, and you shared with me that we talked before about how you train your body. You really, it's a science for you. And while camp's going to end for a lot of players, training never stops for you. Tell us a little bit about how you train your lawn and how important that is to you. Because I know you remember, it was in 2008 you got injured, and in 2009 you come back to the year. What do you do different with your body back then? And also, what do you do different with your mind if you share with us? And love to know the same thing. What are the most important preparatory things for either mentally or physically for both of you? So, Tom.
Yeah, I've learned so much being in this sport for 18 years professionally, 5 years in college, 4 years in high school. I've seen a lot, and I've seen what works and what doesn't work. And when, like you said, someone who's like me, who's always kind of watching and learning. I watched a lot of other people that I loved and looked up to. If you look at, my two idols growing up, Joe Montana, had to retire because his body couldn't hold up. Steve Young retired because, he had a lot of head injuries, which are very scary things. And if you're an athlete, this is the body, this is the one you got. And if you don't have this, you're not doing the thing that you love to do. And I love playing football. And I felt like, and I love being watched and I love playing, and it really is my first love to be able to do something I love to do. And I felt I really made a decision, as I learned and I watched, probably 12 or 13 years ago when the youth really starts to wear off. I'm sure that has for, a lot of the people in this room. You don't feel the way that you used to, energetically, or, you've just had a lot of traumas in your life, whatever they were, mentally, physically. You've been, a lot of stresses in your life, and you got to figure out how to deal with those stresses. And I tried to figure out a better way, a way that would work for me. And I really created, a very disciplined approach to how I take care of my body, which I still do today. I'm more efficient now than I've ever been. But not only really what I put into my body, and I say that's my inner environment, I'm really conscious of what I put in my inner environment and how to absorb all the things in the external environment that you really can't control, but you need to be able to, take what you learn and be able to have this ability about you that can still go out and perform at the highest level. And because I still want to keep playing and I still want to achieve and I still think I can be better, that is a 12-month of a year thing for me. So that's not just when it's football season, it's very much my life. So, treating my body as, what God gave us, and it's this beautiful body that we have that's the only one we'll have for our entire life. And we should be really conscious of how we treat it, what we put into it, and what we allow to come into it, externally that you don't necessarily need to allow in. So I really take a positive outlook on life. A lot of the things that have really been challenging things for me in my life, I feel like I'm so blessed to actually have had those things, because I wouldn't have learned the lessons that I got from them had I not been really challenged. And those things that were the toughest things, the times in my life where, everyone knew how to put their pads on, before I did. And I went to Michigan 7th, and no one really wanted me to play there too much. And I came to the pros, and I was 4th on the depth chart. And, I was looking up at a lot of things, but those were the things that were the best things in my life, and I wouldn't have changed any of them. So sometimes the things that are the worst end up being the best. So where are the negatives? It's hard to find them. And that's how I use them.
Sought out a sports psychologist at one point, and in personality make a difference for you. What did you learn to do so that the mental side continued strong, so you can absorb that external and just deal with it? What kind of stood out for you? What changed for you during that time?
I think his name was Greg Hart. He was a great guy. He was a sports psychologist that worked with the team and a lot of the teams at the university. And he kind of sought me out. It was really interesting, and he had such great perspective, and he smacked you in the face when you needed it. Yeah. And I used to bitch and complain that I wasn't getting all the opportunities that these other kids were getting. Yeah. And he said, quit worrying about that. Just do the best you can do. And he had mentored a guy named Desmond Howard, who ended up winning the Heisman Trophy. He was a great receiver, and he mentored Desmond, and Desmond would always come in and bitch to him that Elvis Gerbach wasn't making the throws. I'd come out of my routes and the ball wasn't right there. And Desmond would have to be diving all over the places to make these incredible catches. And he said, Greg would say, hey Desmond, without all those shitty throws, you wouldn't have won the Heisman. Because he had to make all these spectacular plays. So again, it's, when things aren't going right, to look at them in a positive way. In the same way, like I said, in a 2-minute drive, what could be worse? So I think it's just a shift in your mind. I think it's really just a different mindset that, you're not, just because it's bad doesn't mean it has to stay that way.
You make that shift in your mind, it shifts your body.
Yeah.
How about for yourself? What is it that's kept you going during that time? What do you do to prepare yourself psychologically? I heard you're really dedicated, you've got the work ethic, but also you have this discipline. You're really known for your discipline, for your ferocity in that area. But what do you do that's different than most?
I mean, I lean back on fundamentals. Like I'm a very routine person, and I think that comes from my father. Seeing how he was growing up. Every Saturday, my pops would get up, do his bills, go grab a burrito, and we'd go hit baseballs or throw footballs, and he'd finish his bills after. Like, I can't remember a day he didn't do that. Every Saturday he didn't do that, unless we were playing. But, I'm a very routine-oriented guy, and what motivates me is, it's pretty crazy. I'm going into my 9th year, and when you're younger, your motivations, at least for myself, were different. Your motivation is to prove yourself, prove others wrong. It's almost kind of a foolish pride kind of thing that gets you going. And then when you get older, and you see your parents, and I just had a child, you see your child, you find a motivation. I mean, you always want to be the best. I mean, that's tinkered into my brain. You have that, but then it shifts where, you look at that little girl and you say, whatever I do is going to impact her. Everything, all the joy and all the hard work that you put in is for, her future, is for her. And then, you have the motivation from your parents, your brothers and your sisters, that have been with you. Because through professional sports, I mean, everyone sees the highs, but there's a lot of lows. And that's how you see who your real friends are when the things aren't going right, and who's calling you. And, you realize that after a certain amount of years, when you grow up. And my parents and my brother and sister were always there when things were, not always the best, when you were going through challenges. And to have that, when you grow up, you kind of think, well, I'm still growing up. I'm not like completely growing up. When you grow up, you realize, how great it is to have that, and that motivates you to go out for the name that they have, that you represent, to do the best you possibly can, because it's your family.
Let me ask a question here. Something you have a really wonderful friendship, beyond what you do for a living together. What do you enjoy in each other, and what annoys you about each other? And tell me about this new commercial you got, Eating Pizza, and where does the nickname Squirrel come from? I'm just curious, why does your child become a goat in it by the name of Tom? Tell us a little bit about you guys.
Go for it.
Well, I'll start with the squirrel. I used to get pissed off at Josh McDaniels or Billy O if I wasn't getting, like any reps or anything. And I would make a catch, and I'd be like, don't let me get squirrely, McDaniels, don't let me get squirrely, to try to piss him off. And so, guys would call me the squirrel here and there, and I kind of just jumped on with it, and that's kind of how the squirrel came out.
How do people not know about Tom, and that's one of the reasons you're such a good friend?
What do people not know? He's genuinely just he's really nice. He's an a-hole, on the field.
Good, I'm doing my job.
But, you know what? He's just a great, he's a really good man when you look at it, with how he is with his family, with how he is with his craft, what he does in his workplace. He's just a professional. And a lot of people, they want to bitch and complain about other stuff, what's gone down, but they don't realize that, dude, like, sometimes I'm like, this guy's gotta be like a robot or something, because, I mean, let's go.
What do we not know about this young man, Julian? What do most people know about him that you have insight that makes you appreciate it so much?
Well, there's a lot to appreciate. He's, you know, I never had a little brother, and I kind of do now. I mean, I'm serious. We grew up in the same area. I mean, I've watched him grow from being this, you know, 22-year-old that, you know, I wouldn't say he was the most mature. I wouldn't say he was the least mature either. And now it's like I look at him like, damn, you grew up. You know, I mean, he's become this, you know, wonderful person, how he is with his family and how he is as a father too. And I could just see, you know, what, you know, how big of a change that was in his life. And, you know, he loves what he does. And he takes so much pride in that. He's the first person there every day. You know, he does drills that no one ever sees. I mean, at 5:30 in the morning, he's in there when no one else is in there working on these things. And he's the last one that needs to be doing that, but he's the first one in there. So I'm just proud of, you know, him. He's a very unique individual who's maximized, you know, so many of his talents, and I still think, you know, the best is yet to come for him.
Time for you.
Yeah.
Let's go!
So what's going to happen this coming season?
Like every year, I mean, it's a, I mean, who knows? I like our chances, but who knows? We'll work hard, but, you know, I think with the fans, and I think, you know, I know you guys are a lot of fans, and, you know, I think what you come to watch is what you're going to get, and that's a team that, you know, works their butt off and takes nothing for granted. We've got great coaches, we've got such a great camaraderie that we're trying to build, and look, it's sports. No one knows what's going to happen. That's why everyone loves to watch, and, you know, hopefully we can make it, you know, a great season that you guys can be proud of.
Coach, most people remember the greatest college basketball coach in history, John Wynn. I've been coaching there multiple times before he passed away. When I was 30, when I was 40, we played run. And one of the things I asked him, I said, what was the greatest team in your history? And of course, I thought I knew it would be. It was with Jabbar and, you know, some of the greatest players of all time. He named a team I'd never heard of. And I said, why? And he said, because that team maximized their potential. He said, Tony, what I taught everyone, I've heard of so many people that he mentored over the years, some of the greatest athletes in the world, Bill Walton, people like that. They all said the most important thing they learned from him was, if you go on that court, there's only one way you know you won. It's not whether you have more points than the board. He said, because sometimes things will go for the other team, sometimes there'll be a bad call, sometimes there'll be a luck, sometimes the ball bounces a certain way. Yeah. He said, but the way you know you won or lost is not by your score. If you know that every moment you were on that field, on that floor, you gave every ounce of your soul. And if you do that, more often than not, you'll have more points than the board. And that's what he taught these men. That if you give every ounce, you've won regardless of the score, because if you keep doing that, you'll be the greatest of all time. Two goats here, ladies and gentlemen.